2. Questioning our truth. It can be profoundly confusing to grasp the concept that there is no such a thing as an absolute truth. It is impossible to know whether your experience of reality is a simulation, a dream, or a hallucination, since seeing a third party's point of view as an objective truth is an assumption within your frame of reference. This can sound counterintuitive at first, but the world you experience would not exist without you. Fully understanding this concept can restructure the brain to be less attached and more capable of rationally evaluating different beliefs. The problem with seeing even our own existence as an absolute truth is that we then have to assume that time and space objectively exist. Surprisingly, this is a point of quite some debate in science, and there are phenomena that violate our intuitive understanding of them. When there is strong evidence, scientists consider a theory to be true, but only within our current knowledge or understanding of it. You don't have to take my word for it. Questioning everything I bring up in this book is a good mental exercise that will help you correct flaws within socially conditioned beliefs. I try to be very empirical and construct logical arguments that are based on the assumptions I deem likely, such as what I read in reliable scientific papers. Emotionally, it is very appealing to believe in absolute truths, and most people tend to avoid or reject confrontational ideas because their gut feeling tells them to do so. But erroneous certainties can hold people back or lock them into beliefs that may be illogical or even harmful. Unfortunately, these beliefs are most often created by rationalizing around conclusions and decisions after they've already been made. And even though these automatic mechanisms are natural, we also have the ability to override them with self-awareness. Some might wonder why that even matters, if either way, there are no certainties without absolute truths. But instead of thinking with certainties, it is more accurate to think in probabilities. This is perhaps the most important insight I have learned from how scientists approach the smallest building blocks of our world. Our entire universe is made up of quanta, such as electrons and photons, that all behave probabilistically rather than deterministically. Ultimately, anything is possible, and answering any yes or no question with "there is a chance" is actually factually correct. As much as we'd love to believe in absolute truths, real answers will always lie in probabilities and approximations. Chapter 3. How deep does the rabbit hole go? When people think about conditioning, the overall perception is that it influences our actions, but we are still in control. We have the tendency to ignore the impact of our environment when we look at ourselves and take many processes that have been fundamental to our development for granted. This ranges from the language we speak to how we define concepts or even the emotions we experience when we think about things. This then translates into our body language, our intonations, and ultimately the culture that we feel a part of. All these processes are in one way or another conditioned, and being aware of this can highly increase the control we have over ourselves. There is an endless number of examples that can be given in relation to this topic, and many of these can sound mind-blowing and hard to believe at times. Yet these dynamics define our everyday interactions and decisions more than our own perceived level of control. Most of our actions and thoughts happen subconsciously, and conditioning lays down the foundation of these processes as we grow up. We accept them as part of our identity, and we personalize them so we feel unique and special. Our sense of self has little to do with how we perceive it, and more with how we have been molded by our environment. I found that neuroscience provides the best framework to master the self. Expanding on this, the following 5 chapters will be more scientific and less personal.